Okay, so welcome to week 4 of the Ray of Hope crochet along, and this week we're starting on our outer pieces. So these are the pieces that join to our central mandala, and we're starting this week with the floating boxes stitch. Okay, so we're going to be making this the long way. So it only has 9 rows, but we have to start with a long chain, and we're using a 3.5mm hook. So you need to start by making a chain of 82. Okay, so I've got my foundation chain, 82 stitches, and now we're going to start our first row. So I've marked my very first chain. I always use my turning chain as the first stitch if I can. Okay, so now in the 6th chain from your hook, we're going to make a double crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you want to follow along with my colours, there is a list of them in the description of this video, so you can see which colours I've been using. Okay, so that's second stitch here. Your first stitch is your turning chain, and this first stitch is a double crochet and a chain 1. So we've got that gap here, that's going to be your acts as a chain 1 in our next row. And now we're going to double crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. This is a nice easy stitch to start with, you'd be glad to hear. Okay, so we've got a turning chain and then 4 double crochet. Then chain 1, skip the next chain, and the chain after that make 4 double crochet. And this is our pattern for this row. 4 double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, and then another 4 double crochet. And we'll do that all the way to the end of the row until we only have 2 chains left. 3, and there's my number 4, and then I chain 1, skip a stitch, and then another 4 double crochet. So then, okay, so I've got to my last 2 stitches, and I've now got 15 blocks of 4. So not including that first stitch with your turning chain, but we have 15 whole blocks of 4. So for the last 2 stitches, I'm going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and at the very last stitch I'm going to make a double crochet. But in those last 2 loops on your hook, I'm going to change colour. So I'm going to change colour into this light blue, and then just join it by pulling through the last 2 loops on your hook. And that is row 1 complete. So now kind of row 2, I'm going to turn, and you should have 80 stitches, I should say. So including your turning chain, you should have 80 stitches for this. So now I'm going to turn, I'm chain 1, and in that same stitch, oops, pulled up the wrong bits there, we'll just tighten that. Yep. There, I'm going to chain 1. In that first stitch. I'll chain 1 single crochet, to beg your pardon. So it's join in, chain 1, and single crochet in that first stitch. So then I'm going to chain 1, and 2, 3, and 4. So a single crochet, chain 4. Then we're going to skip all the double crochet, then around the chain 1, so in that first chain space, we'll make a single crochet. And we're going to repeat this all the way across. So then we chain 4, go to the next chain space after your block of 4 double crochet, into there, and a single crochet. around that chain space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 chains, and then single crochet in that chain space. Repeat that all the way down the row. I'm going to carry on with that, and I shall see you when I get to the end of the row. Okay, so I've got to the end of the row and I've made a single crochet in that last chain space. So now we've got our last stitch left, and this is our turning chain in row 1. And in that last stitch I'm going to single crochet. Okay, that's the end of row 1. So now I'm going to cut off the blue because I'm not going to use this again. But I didn't cut off the green because to avoid too many ends to weave in, I'm going to go back to the beginning of row 2 and into that first stitch, and I'm going to pick up the green from the row below. So this means that you don't turn, you just go back to the beginning. You can't do this with all stitches that you have different colours with, but this one works well with it. So I've just rejoined that green by pulling it through that first stitch. So I'll just bring it up and then pull through that very first stitch in blue, and this will just carry up the sides. So okay, so I've rejoined that in and I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to make the alternate turning chain. So we did this during our mandala, but I'll pop a link in the close-up video on how to do this in case you need it again. But if you really don't like this method, you can just chain 3. And I'm just going to pop a stitch in the top there because that counts as our first stitch. Oops. Doggy fur. Right. So we've got our chain, alternate turning chain. So row 3, we're going to chain 1, and then around your chain, chain 4 of row 2, around there we're going to make 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3 and 4. And now you begin to see why one of the names of this stitch is floating boxes, because it makes it look like your set of double crochet are floating. Okay, so when you're doing your 4 double crochet, you're going to chain 1, skip the single crochet, and around the next chain make another 4 double crochet. 1, 2, 3. There's my yarn gone. And 4. Then chain 1 and skip the skip the single crochet. Apologies. But that's what it's going to look like. So all this will even out, and you'll only be left by seeing this little colour of the single crochet. And that's the only part of that second row you'll see. So I'm going to carry on with that, and I shall see you when we get to the end of the row. So it's just 4 double crochet around the chains, chain 1, skip the single crochet, and then another 4 double crochet around the chains all the way down until we get to the last couple of stitches. I'll carry on with that and I shall see you in a moment. Okay, so I made my last set of 4 double crochet, and to finish the row I'm just going to chain 1, and in that last stitch of that row, which is the blue, I'm going to make a double crochet, but I'm going to change colours in that last 2 stitches again. If you wanted to use the same colour for row that you used for row 2, the whole thing, then don't cut off, you just pull it up the sides like we did for the green. But I've decided I want to use a different colour for each row, which does end up with a fair few ends, but I like the look. So I'm just going to join that in those last 2 loops. I'm going to turn, chain 1 and single crochet in that first stitch. So this stitch works well in a single colour as well, so you don't have to change colours for row 2. Okay, and I won't cut the green because I'll carry that up for the rest of the rows. So this is just a repeat of row 2. So I've done my single crochet, now I chain 4, skip all the double crochet and then make a single crochet in that chain space. So your single crochets from the repeat of row 2 will line up and you'll get this floating effect going up. Okay. So that's the repeat. You're going to repeat rows 2 and 3, and there's 9 rows in total. So you're going to end up finishing on a repeat of this row 3, so you'll end up with boxes on the top. Okay, you'll have 80 stitches in total, so it's 15 blocks across plus a chain and single crochet at both ends, so we get 80 stitches in total and 9 rows. So once we've finished, you can cut off, weave in all your ends, and then we need to add the slip stitch border. So there's your completed block stitch. So we get this nice rectangle. So it's 9 rows in total, and you're going to finish on the block row. And I've got 4 of these little rows of colour. So you can see that the coloured rows get covered quite nicely by the double crochet. So once we finish this, we need to add our slip stitch border. And it's just a row of slip stitches that goes right the way around, and that means that we can join this to our other rays. We're not going to be joining anything this week, we will start joining next week in week 5. Okay, so to start joining, you're going to switch to a 4mm hook, and you're going to get your border colour and just join it onto your hook, and into any stitch just join with a slip stitch. Ooh, I don't know what I did there, hang on, something went a bit funny. Try again. Onto the hook and just join in with a slip stitch. There we go. Then just slip stitch in each stitch round. So when you get to these chain spaces, just slip stitch into the chain space. And that's as simple as it is. Dog hair on the way. Sorry, my dog's molting like crazy at the minute, so I apologise if you see dog fur everywhere. Okay, so you're just going to slip stitch in every stitch round. And you don't need to worry about the corners. When you get to a corner stitch, I'll just get into that top chain one. You don't do anything. You don't need to add any stitches for the corners, you just go straight the way around. So down the sides, in the side of every double crochet you make 2 slip stitches, and in the side of every single crochet you make 1 stitch. So here it's 2 stitches, 1 and 2. So if you carried any yarn up the side for this, it's not going to show, because these slip stitches, they sit just on top, kind of on the inside edge of this square. So this bit, once we join, you won't see, it'll kind of fold under. Same with these sides. Anything that you've carried, you're not going to see because it's going to get folded under and will be hidden once we attach everything. So getting around those bits can be a bit tricky, but and then we just carry on round, and that's all there is to it. So you do that round each side, so you should have 80 slip stitches going along the long way, and let me just check, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, yes, 14 slip stitches coming down the short edge. So you don't add anything for the corners at all, just go right the way around. And once you get back to this beginning side, join into the first slip stitch, and then you can cut off and weave in your ends. And that will be week 4 complete. Okay, so enjoy, and I shall see you next week for the next stitch. Bye for now.